In October last year, my boyfriend got fired from his job. It was just a part-time restaurant job, but he had been there for almost 2 years, so his pay plus tips was pretty good. So when he got fired, he was pretty upset, and it was a touchy subject. So for the following few months, I didn't bring up anything regarding his employment. However, since he lost his job, I have been the one paying for our dates and meals and stuff because I work full-time at an admin job. It pays really well, and despite it being a typical 9 to 5, I really like it. I haven't really minded paying for things, but I decided that my New Year's resolution was going to be to save more money. So we have been cutting back on going out. My boyfriend also does not drive, as he has anxiety specifically about driving. He has his learner's license permit, but he hasn't actually driven in a year. I have my own car and full license, so I typically drive us places which I don't really mind. When we graduated high school in 2022, we both decided we didn't want to go to college, university. I decided not to go because the career I wanted to pursue didn't really require any post-secondary schooling. My boyfriend decided against it because his ADHD makes schooling really difficult for him. He was planning to just keep working at the restaurant until he figured out exactly what he wanted to pursue. The situation in question happened 2 nights ago. We have been planning a trip to go visit his family in Europe this summer. We were discussing the plane tickets and looking at prices, and they're currently around $800. I asked if he was going to get a job to pay for the ticket, and he said, "There is no point in getting a job right now since we are leaving for almost 2 months in June. Plus, my parents can pay for my ticket." According to him, I made a disgusted face when he said this, so he asked why. I basically told him that it's becoming too much for me to be paying for everything. And I honestly don't know if I can handle being with someone who is unemployed for almost a year without even bothering or caring to look for a job. I say almost a year because we do not get back from our trip until August. So he wouldn't start working until September, making it almost a year since he lost his job. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I basically went on a rant about how even if we are leaving for a bit, he should still want to be doing something productive with his time. As soon as I said it all, I felt horrible. I immediately apologized for being harsh, but he said he just wanted to be alone to think and asked me to go home. It's been 2 days now. I haven't been able to see him since I've had to work, so I've been texting, but he either leaves me on read or gives me one-word answers. I feel so bad still. How can I fix this, and how can we move forward? Edit. I forgot to add a key detail. I did try to ask in January what his plan was in terms of getting a job, but he brushed me off because he said he wasn't ready to talk about it yet, as the layoff was still fresh to him. I thought I had given him enough time, but I didn't, so I had just been holding off on talking about it again. I didn't really plan to bring it up, it sort of just happened because I had a long week and was too exhausted to filter myself, which I know is my fault. Edit 2. Wow, this absolutely blew up. I have been trying to read all the comments, but TBH, I might not be able to. I appreciate all the advice, especially those of you saying more than just dump him, LOL. My plan is to have a serious talk with him in a couple of days and show him this post and some of these comments as a sort of wake-up call for him. I will create an update post once I talk to him. Again, thank you for all the helpful and kind words. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I mean, he does indeed sound like a loser. If he is not going to school, he should have been proactive in establishing what was next for him. Instead, he wallowed in his feelings and did nothing. Can't go to school because of ADHD? Poor baby, it's not like people do this all the time. He is indeed a loser, truth hurts. Comment 2. Girl, as a woman who is with somebody like this for 7 years, you will likely continue to be his mommy wife. Speaking from experience, go find someone who wants to take care of each other equally. How healthy relationships should be. Don't waste your youth taking care of someone else. You will regret it. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. After our big argument, things went from bad to worse. My boyfriend finally reached out and said we needed to talk. I was hopeful, thinking maybe he'd see my point of view, but I was wrong. He told me he'd decided to move back to Europe permanently. He said he felt lost here and needed to go back home to find himself. I was stunned. I mean, we had plans, dreams, and now he was just leaving? I tried to talk him out of it, but his mind was made up. He said he'd been feeling this way for a while, but didn't know how to tell me. He was leaving in a week, and that was that. I felt betrayed, like our whole relationship was a lie. He was choosing to run away instead of facing our problems together. The aftermath was a mess. I had to explain to our friends why he was leaving so suddenly, and they were just as shocked as I was. Some were angry on my behalf, others just sad for the both of us. I had to deal with the embarrassment of canceling our trip, losing the deposit on the plane tickets, and explaining to my family why he wouldn't be around anymore. But that wasn't the end of it. A few days after he left, I found out he'd been lying to me about something else. He had actually been offered a job a month ago, but turned it down because he was planning to move back to Europe. He didn't want to start a job only to quit shortly after. I couldn't believe it. He let me pay for everything, knowing full well he had no intention of contributing. I was furious. I felt like a fool for trusting him, for believing in us. I confided in a friend who had always been wary of him, and she wasn't surprised. She told me she'd seen him talking to his ex a few times and thought something was off. I didn't want to believe her, but it made sense. Maybe he was never really over her, and that's why he was going back. Now, I'm left picking up the pieces of my life. I'm trying to save money, but it's hard when I'm still paying off the debts we accumulated together. I'm trying to be strong, but some days it's just too much. I keep telling myself that it's better this way, that I'm better off without someone who could lie to me so easily. I've accepted the situation even though it's terrible. I'm trying to move on, but it's hard not to feel like I've wasted so much time on someone who didn't deserve it. I guess I have to find a way to forgive him, or at least forget him for my own sake. Thanks for reading this far. It's been therapeutic to get it all out. My long-distance BF took another girl out on Valentine's Day. So I exposed his cheating to his mother and made sure he regretted playing me. My boyfriend currently is not living with me. He's staying with his mother about 4 hours away because he's about to start working on the road. So right now, we are doing long distance. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, which doubles up as our anniversary for when we went official. I was pretty sad that we couldn't spend it together. But he's coming out on Friday and we can spend the weekend together. He and I barely talked yesterday, excluding the fight we had. We probably spoke for about 2 minutes on the phone and only texted once to say good morning and happy Valentine's Day. No communication on our anniversary. He called me at like 8 p.m. and I was excited thinking, finally, here's our call for the day. But instead, he's in someone's car on the way to the bar. He told me he was going to the bar with this girl he's been hanging out with every night, that her and her boyfriend got in a fight today, so he took her out for dinner to cheer her up. And now they're going to the bar because she's going to try and pick someone up to get laid. I got pissed immediately. I was basically ignored all day, on Valentine's Day, so that he could take some other chick out on a date. I hung up and he and I bickered over text for a bit. And basically his defense for this was, her and I aren't even sexually compatible. I told you because I wanted to be honest. If I was cheating, I would have lied to you. I'm really upset, to the point I'm not sure I want him coming here anymore. He's making me feel like I'm crazy for being upset, because I know nothing went on, but it still feels inappropriate to me. I honestly never get like this, but I don't even think I feel comfortable with him hanging out with this person anymore. Is what he did inappropriate, or am I possibly just being too sensitive? Would it be silly to tell him to cancel the trip to see me over this? I'm mad now, but this would be the only time I can see him for months. Mini update. So I have spoken with him. He agrees that the situation wasn't very ideal and apologized for how yesterday went. And I have to admit, I made this post in a very bad headspace, and I have very black and white thinking. Because I was upset when I posted this, I made it sound worse than it was. He isn't cheating on me. I have no reason to believe he is. This woman isn't someone he hangs out with every night. It's someone he sees at the same bar every time he goes. They aren't close at all. He did kind of say that originally too, but I processed it differently. It's also more my fault than his that we didn't speak all day. I've been dealing with a depressive episode and I slept most of the day yesterday. like from 2-8 and then 8:30 till today. He woke up around 2, we said Happy Valentine's Day to each other, and then I passed out. He tried to call me around 7, but I didn't answer because I was sleeping. That one is on me. I was just upset it happened, so I blamed him for it. They didn't really go on a date. She had left the bar and walked to the restaurant. They are across the street crying as she and her boyfriend got into a fight. My boyfriend was about to go into the restaurant at the same time, and so he asked her what was wrong. They had dinner together so she could vent. She then drove to drop her car off at her house so they could walk to the bar together. I have Lifety, and I know he was only there for like 10 minutes. My boyfriend agrees that her trying to sleep with someone else after the woman and her boyfriend got into a fight was not okay, and she wound up calling her boyfriend as soon as they got there. My boyfriend called me, sent the selfie, and all this because I have trust issues, and he was trying to keep me in the loop, so I wasn't watching his location and panicking. And that stupid sexually compatible thing is just what he says about anyone he isn't sexually attracted to. It's so annoying, but that's literally what he means by it, and I do know that. I just hate hearing it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's the her and I aren't even sexually compatible comment that got me. How does he know that? Did they date in the past? I have platonic female friends, and I have zero idea if we are sexually compatible or not, because it's such a non-statement in my opinion. Comment 2. Yikes, definitely not okay. They're also hanging out every night. I don't know, girl. She either doesn't actually have a boyfriend, or they're both messing around behind their partners' backs. He doesn't sound considerate or trustworthy to me. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for more of my life soap opera. After we patched things up, I thought we were good. But then, my boyfriend's bar friend, let's call her Ms. Trouble, started showing up more often in his stories. I tried to shake off the unease, but it gnawed at me. I mean, who wouldn't feel a sting of jealousy? 3 days ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Ms. Trouble, sobbing into the phone about how my boyfriend had been in a terrible accident. My heart stopped, but when I called the hospital, they had no record of him. Turned out, it was a sick joke. She later texted, "Just wanted to see if you cared as much as I do." I was livid. Who does that? I confronted my boyfriend, and he was just as shocked. He swore he didn't know she'd pull such a stunt, but the seed of doubt was planted. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. Yesterday, I decided to surprise him. I drove the 4 hours, and what do I find? Ms. Trouble's car parked outside his mom's house. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I walked in on them laughing and cooking together. It was like a scene straight out of a bad romance flick. I lost it. The room spun with their excuses. "We're just friends," they said, "but friends don't whisper and share looks like that." I told him it was over right then and there. He tried to stop me, but I was done. I couldn't be the one always worrying, always doubting. Driving back home, I felt a mix of anger and relief. I was free from the constant anxiety, the need to check Life 60, the fear of betrayal. It was over, and I could start healing. Thanks for reading my vent. My wife deletes evidence of her online flirting. But after a decade together in a health scare, I make her admit to her hypocrisy, and we head to therapy to fix our broken marriage. A decade ago, not long into marriage, we hit a rough patch. My wife was stressed with work. Our intimacy life wasn't as exciting as it had been. I started to get cold feet and even think I'd made a mistake in committing to her. I ended up seeking comfort in an online acquaintance I'd been talking to on a friendly basis, and things turned to intimacy. We were sexting every day for a while and using Skype while my wife was working shifts. This came to a head when one day, my wife noticed Skype had been downloaded on the laptop, got curious, and found the chat logs. She confronted me in the heat of the moment. I took the laptop off her and deleted everything because I didn't want her to be hurt by seeing all the details, the way I'd talked about her and my doubts about our marriage, let alone the cheating that had taken place. I did admit to the cheating, which she had already gathered from what she had seen. It had only even been online, and we moved past it eventually. Fast forward 10 years. Life has been tough the last few years. The usual suspects: demands of kids, work, caring responsibilities. My wife expressed she was missing intimacy and wanted us to put more effort into our intimacy life. I was happy to hear this, but I'll admit that due to pressures, it never really got off the ground in the way we discussed, despite all good intentions. Life just got in the way on my part. My wife was paying a lot more attention to her phone, and something seemed off when I asked her about it. Long story short, I snooped on her phone when she was out of the room and found she had been sexting and exchanging pics with an internet stranger. I was absolutely stunned and confronted her with it. She immediately took the phone and deleted all the evidence, just like I did a decade ago. She did admit to the sexting and said it had been very recent, solely online, checks out from what I saw, and that it had arisen through intimacy frustration. She said she still wants me and just wants to have more intimacy in our marriage. I'm unexpectedly struggling so much with her response of deleting everything because it feels like she is hiding things. But she says she doesn't want me to be hurt by the details, which is hard to argue with given I did the exact same thing, and that was genuinely why. How do we move on from this? I know a lot of people will say any cheating is a red line, but based on what I saw, I do believe this was purely an online thing where she didn't even seem to know the guy's name. I don't think I can throw many years of marriage away over that, and my wife has forgiven me the same before. But I am absolutely devastated and struggling to reconcile what has happened and what I saw with who I know my wife to be. Edit to add, I know I'm getting a taste of my own medicine, and my own cheating is absolutely relevant here, hence I've framed my query as I have. We have both cheated and obviously have some reflection to do, but honestly, I'm astounded that so many of you are absolutely certain that an otherwise happy 15-year relationship with kids is completely doomed and toxic. Because in that time, there have been 2 episodes of short-lived digital cheating. Either the Reddit hive or I am completely unrealistic. But when I look around me, most people I know in mature marriages have had to work through things, often much worse things, over many years together. And many remain fundamentally happy together. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You reconcile the same way she did. I abhor cheating. It's a vile thing to do to somebody you love. But now you're feeling everything she felt when you did it to her. And she's feeling the shame you did when she found out. You cannot want the details of what was said to find an easier path to reconciliation when you denied her the same courtesy 10 years ago. The fact is, if you both want the marriage, figure it out. Comment 2. You move forward the same way she did 10 years ago. She did exactly what you did. And guess what? She told you what the problem was before she started cheating, and you didn't fix it. I'm not saying she was right, but yes, she did exactly what you did. And she was able to move on then. Why can't you? Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So it's been 3 months since I found out about my wife's online affair. Things have been, well, interesting to say the least. I thought we could move past it, but then, out of nowhere, my world got flipped upside down again. My wife's phone buzzed one evening, and I saw a message from a name I didn't recognize. It was from her sister. Turns out, she had been talking to her sister about everything, and her sister had been egging her on to leave me, saying she deserved better after what I did years ago. I was furious, not just because of the betrayal, but because her sister was meddling in our marriage. It felt like a punch in the gut. I confronted my wife, and we had a huge fight. She said she felt trapped and didn't know who else to turn to. I couldn't believe it. I thought we were in this together, but she was planning an escape route. But then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my wife had a health scare. She found a lump and thought it might be cancer. Suddenly, all the anger and resentment I felt towards her melted away. I was terrified of losing her. We went to the doctor together, and thankfully it turned out to be benign. That scare changed everything for me. I realized life was too short to hold on to anger and bitterness. We started going to therapy, and it's been hard. Digging up all the old wounds, talking about our feelings, it's not easy. But it's been good for us. We're learning to communicate better, to understand each other's needs. It's a slow process, but we're making progress. Then, just when things were starting to look up, my job got in trouble. The company was going under, and I was laid off. It was a huge blow. We depended on my income, and without it, we were in a tough spot. My wife stepped up, though. She started working extra hours, picking up shifts wherever she could. It was humbling to see her working so hard for our family, especially after everything that had happened. I felt weak, desperate even. I had always been the provider, and now I was the one needing support. But my wife was there for me, just like I was there for her during her health scare. It made me forgive her for the sexting, for wanting to leave. I realized that we all make mistakes, but what matters is how we come back from them. We're still working on our marriage. It's not perfect, but we're both committed to making it work. We've had our fair share of ups and downs, but we're getting through them together. It's not the fairy tale ending I once hoped for, but it's real and it's ours. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.